And welcome, everyone. Let's begin our meeting by sitting in silence together. Wherever you find yourself in this moment, in whatever circumstances, you can take these next 10 minutes to simply retreat. Whatever the feelings, whatever the thoughts, whatever the circumstances, retreating. At the end of 10 minutes, we'll speak to each other. Thank you. Again, welcome. We can grieve the circumstances that bring us together and yet celebrate that we are together. So, with the circumstances happening all over our globe right now, I do experience grief for that. And I do find the celebration that we are able to meet, that you are interested in meeting, that we have the technology to meet. And may our meeting really serve for all being everywhere to recognize that in the heart of what is not wanted, in the core of what is always here, there is love and peace. That's the message from this lineage, and it is my great task to translate that into a relevance to you, to your life, and to your life at this very moment in time, this actual moment in time. Is this happening? I just saw a chat.
Zoom is happening, but Facebook.
Okay, so Facebook can take care of itself. Anyway, we are connected. I want to lead you in a self-inquiry meditation exercise. But first, I wanted to just bring a couple of questions that came up before this meeting, just to set the context. And really, the context is this potential catastrophe that we are facing, this bad news of this virus. You know, the virus itself, if you see microscopic pictures of it, is quite beautiful. It's radiant. But the harm it causes to many, many human beings all over the planet is not beautiful. And so we can actually hold both at the same time, the beauty of form and the destruction of form. And we can discover what it is that holds it all, but not as something to remember and not as something to learn or to know, but something that you directly experience as your own self, not a something at all. You. I'm always talking about you. So a couple of questions came in, and I just want to read just little parts of them so that you can see if it relates to you. And if it doesn't relate to you, you can see how many people are experiencing this particular time in history. Dear Gangaji, I sense that it's crucial right now to be able to be here. Well, I just want to answer that right away. You are here. There's nothing you have to do to be here. I understand wanting to be here and that you collect yourself and you return to simply being here. But if you don't phrase that in a way that makes here someplace separate from where you are, then you really get to see how huge here is. And that here holds everything, all emotions, all activity, all events, here. So if you are trying to get here because you know that here is a spaciousness or the right place to be, or you'll feel better if you can just get here, that in itself is a thought that, even if just for a millisecond, keeps you from experiencing that you are totally here. Whatever else is here, you are here. Being with my family now that we are bound to stay home at the same time, my nervous system easily goes into overdrive, and I have the urge to control my environment. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. You can recognize that, and you can recognize that really what we are dealing with now has nothing to do with your control. You do have control in terms of being able to abide by what is your responsibility in terms of protecting others, protecting yourself. But if you try to control what your emotions are, as you know from your own experience, that just makes the emotions more uncontrollable, more unpleasant. So I'm not teaching you to control anything. I'm inviting you to recognize what is at the core of everything, what is in the heart of the heart. That has nothing to do with control or not control. You can try to control, you can experience control, and this that is in the heart of all is still here. You can fail at controlling, you can be out of control, and this that is in the heart is always here. And then what is the most important practice for me right now in order to serve my own healing, my children, and awakening? It's a beautiful question. Well, first, I would recommend that you discover what you are practicing. We are trained to practice certain strategies. It's part of our survival. And control is one of those strategies. Also, hiding is another strategy, or fighting is a strategy. Making love can actually be a strategy. Denying, dissociating, a strategy. You can recognize those strategies are practiced, and that practice is designed to save you in some way. But the truth is, if you are on this call in this moment, you are already saved. You are here. There is no practice. If you want to inquire, I know that inquiry gets called a practice, and we can even name it a practice, but it's not a practice. If inquiry becomes a practice, then it's just another strategy. But in our time together, we will inquire. And I'll take you through the questions that have assisted inquiry that I've used in the past. And here's another question. Well, it's the same as you'll recognize it. How can I feel fear without controlling the moment? I don't know that I understand that question. This is not a mother tongue English speaker, so maybe it's the phrasing. If there is the impulse to control, there is fear. So I believe what she's asking is, how can I face the fear? How can I directly experience the fear? And then she gives a lot of alternative possibilities. Is it the stop in acting? And I think that means, do I stop acting? Or is it me who produces the fear because of fear which is here naturally? So yes, there's fear on top of fear. Fear is an uncomfortable emotion, and panic is a dangerous emotion. So we don't want to contribute to panic, but we have to be able to be willing. We have to be willing. We are able. We have to be willing to open to the fear that is natural in a moment like this. It's the unknown. We think we know, and then something happens, like this virus, that is proof we don't know, even though there were predictions of this for a long time. So just the very willingness to not know, the willingness to fear. And then in that, you recognize where you attempt to control. You never succeed really in controlling. Even if you are successful in putting yourself into a trance of denial, you know you're in a trance because your system is shut down. And you're free to be in that trance. It may be quite useful to be in denial at certain points. But if you're interested in experiencing fear, then you just recognize that that in itself is a vulnerability and an openness. And there's actually no how to do that. You can recognize what you do that avoids that vulnerability, that openness, that experience of the core. And then someone wrote, it feels quite impossible to say yes in this situation. How can I find a way to say yes? Well, if yes is the goal, then we are trying to get there. And if no is the reality, then we are denying the reality. There's nothing wrong with saying no. If you are willing to say no, then you're actually saying yes to no. No, I don't want this. No, this isn't happening. No, I don't believe this. If you're willing to say yes to that, then it has no power. Then you get to actually tell the truth. What is happening? What do I see? There's a tendency, and it's very strong in spiritual groups or people who are attracted to spiritual inquiry. And that's to know the meaning of something so that then I can say yes to it. So that if I know that the meaning of this virus and this global pandemic is actually for the good, then I can relax and say yes. And so then there are many teachers who are supporting you in that and saying, yes, it's ultimately for the good, and may it be ultimately for the good. But what I'm inviting you to is really not knowing the meaning of it or anything that's out of your control, not knowing the meaning of death, not knowing the meaning of birth. And when you don't know the meaning, then you have a possibility to directly and freshly discover what is your experience in this moment. Something that is deeper than yes or no. Something that is here regardless if you are saying yes or no. That's the nature of inquiry, to actually take a moment and see for yourself what is still here. I wanted to just bring forth a couple of more questions that were asked. One person said, I would like to ask you to talk about faith and prayer. Well, may all being be happy. May all being realize the truth. That's the prayer. The faith is discovered as living that prayer. What can you say to the people who are challenged by the dynamics and relationships with the people they're now quarantined with? Well, as I said with the earlier question, I'm sure that there are many people in that situation. And the truth is, we're all quarantined together here on Earth. And we see that that's often quite dysfunctional and is perhaps the source of the war. We feel that there's not enough of our Earth so that we have to share it with others. So this is a great opportunity to actually be willing to discover where you are making war with others or with yourself for making war. Where is the tendency for war arising? And is it possible to allow it to arise, to allow the feelings of agitation or anger or fear to arise, and to actually open to all of those feelings? It is possible, and I'm here to support you in that possibility. And also, what can you say to people who are challenged by being alone in the quarantine, because there are many people who are alone, and perhaps many who long for social connection. That is the beauty of the technology that we have. That's the beauty of the telephone, whether it's the old telephone lines or the signals that we go by now, that we can stay connected. We are connected. And it is natural as a human being to want that connection, to discover that connection, and to be nourished by that. So we didn't actually ask for questions. There was a note saying if there are questions about the call, please let us know. But these people interpreted that as asking questions, and I appreciated that. I thought it would give context to this invitation of self-inquiry. So let's just take a moment now. Just, if you're listening with friends, you just distance yourself from your friends or your family, whoever you may be quarantined with. If you're by yourself, you just go more deeply into yourself. If you're chatting on one part of your computer, you just stop the chat for a moment. You allow your attention to come back home without even needing to know what that means. You allow yourself to experience the relaxation of all your internal organs, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your intestines, your pancreas, spleen, liver, all your muscles, all the capillaries, all the blood that is flowing through your body is actually able to relax. You may feel a deep sigh coming from the depths of your belly. You can even put your hands on your belly and allow your belly to expand. Taking a deep breath in and then releasing it, just as a means for these few moments of retreating, so that you can ask yourself these relevant questions. When you're relaxed, when you're ready, ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want? You don't have to censor or edit any of the answers. Just let the answers come up. What do I truly want? What do I finally want? If you only get one desire, what is that desire? Ask yourself, where have I looked for that? Where have I searched for that? And without judgment, just be aware of all the activities, places, and relationships, thoughts that have been directed in that search for what you truly want. Just taking a moment. You may see pictures You may remember events. It may even be blank. It doesn't matter. You're asking yourself, what do I want? And where have I looked for that? In this moment, here together, as an experiment, are you willing to stop looking for what you want any place, just in this moment, to stop looking? Is it possible? If it's not possible, you tell yourself the truth of that. And you recognize that there is something unfinished to this inquiry. What do I want? Where have I looked for that? And in this moment, just for this moment, am I willing to stop looking for that which I want most, any place, in any activity, in any body, in any event, or in any event stopping? If out of curiosity, you do stop looking any place for what you truly want, what do you find? What is here? I don't know how you will incorporate this into your life going forward, but I know that if this has been a true inquiry for you, it will be incorporated. The how is secondary. The recognition of how it is incorporated and how it grows and how the possibility of true inquiry, really taking a moment to stop and asking the true questions. In this case, there were questions about what you want and where you have looked for it and what is here when you stop looking. But inquiry can take any form. It can be the inquiry of experiencing fear or the fear of fear and taking a moment to not do anything with that, to actually experience it as it is. When fear is experienced as energy, as feelings, without a story attached to it, without thoughts defining it. When it is not fought or made war with, what is it? What is it in your experience? So just let yourself open to the possibility of inquiry. And when I use the word inquiry, I'm speaking of using your natural intelligence to actually investigate. And that investigation has no outcome in mind. It's a free investigation. We're not inquiring into fear so that you feel better. We're inquiring into fear so that you discover what is at the root of fear, or what is the ground that fear appears in. The same could be true of anger or love, happiness, unhappiness, whatever you're experiencing in your daily life. You have the opportunity to take a moment. How long did that take? I didn't think to time it, but a few minutes, 3 minutes, just to give yourself a couple of minutes to open your mind, to not know, and to be willing to investigate what is here. What is here when I'm not looking for something I think should be here? That's the gist of the invitation from Ramana and from Papa G and from me. So I offer that to you in deepest connection. And I invite you, I see that there are a lot of hands that are up. I'm assuming all these hands are people with questions. I invite you to bring your questions here now. There's no way that I will be able to answer everyone. But we will see how it goes. I appreciate your questions, and I direct you also always to the source of the question, where the question begins. What is the motivation of the question? And then inquiring into that. Okay, Joanna Coelho, yes.
Hi, Gangaji.
Hi.
When you asked what I wanted, what came to me was nothing. There's nothing that I could want.
Mm.
And there's an emptiness where that answer comes from.
Mm.
I mean, my deepest wish is that my perception, that somehow I know that he's always there, but there's a distraction or something. And of course, my deepest wish is that I'm established there.
So beautiful, Joanna. So peaceful. You know, even then, the deepest wish that I am established there, you somehow have to turn into some desire
Yeah.
to be where you already are. In the experience of that wanting nothing, the emptiness that is full, where's any question about establishment or
There's no
there or me? Yeah.
There's no question.
So that's the vigilance, this willingness to recognize we have this capacity, this astounding capacity to actually open and discover freedom, because freedom is freedom from desire. And maybe it was the desire that revealed freedom, the emptiness of freedom, not needing anything. And then our habit as human beings, as part of our survival, is to add to that something about me. And since you are in love with this space, you're in love with yourself in the depth of your being, what you added, or what you added in this moment, was, how can I be established there? Somebody else may say, how can I keep it always? And someone else may say, how can I spread this to everyone? But those are all questions that are actually false questions. They're good intentioned, but they're false, because in that moment they are denying that you are here, that you are this that is here, that you are here-ness. Does that make sense to you?
It makes all sense.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, when the question arises, I can see the one asking the question.
Yes, you see the emptiness of the one asking the question too. It's the same substance. But how beautiful you bring that to us. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you so much, Gangaji.
Thank you. Okay, Celeste.
I'm sorry, Gangaji, the Zoom app is giving me information that Celeste is on a version of Zoom that won't allow her to speak, so we'll have to.
Oh, so sorry, Celeste. So sorry. How about Carlos?
Can you hear me?
It's very low.
How about now?
Better.
Okay. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, Carlos. Good to hear your voice.
It's good to see you, Gangaji.
Mm.
I ended up pressing the raised hand before I knew the rules. I didn't actually have a question. I just wanted to say hi, and I love
That's all right. That's beautiful. That's what we're doing here. We're really, we don't need a question to be here. We're just saying, hi, I'm here. We're here together. So thank you, Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you, Gangaji.
Mm. I always want to also thank Tom and Kat and Harriet and Barb and Shanti for working with the Zoom platform and Zubin. I see Zubin's on the chat with the staff. Thank you all for working to make this possible. This amount of people, we have over 1,000 people on this, really stretches the limits of our Zoom platform. But that's what limits are for, to be stretched. So, Marcus Abraham.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Oh, fantastic. Nice to meet you. It's the first time talking to you.
Oh, welcome.
I weren't even actually expecting for you to I've been in the group for a while, and I noticed thought a little strategy to press the raise the hand button straight away and you might get a chance to speak to you. And I didn't know that was today, so I thought I'm just going to press it and see what happens. So, but it's very nice to see you, and yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing. And now I'm just a bit like gobsmacked. And do I have a question?
Do you? You don't need one. Yes. And I love this phrase, gobsmacked. It's so vivid. Just open then in that moment. You have been called on. In that moment, you have been acknowledged as being here.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Really.
So you don't need a question, Marcus. It's not needed.
No, I really feel that. And, thank you very much. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. It's just beautiful just to hear people's voices and really then those people who are speaking and saying, whoa, I didn't even mean to raise my hand, or Mark was saying, I raised my hand, but I really don't have a question. They're speaking for all of us. We are here to be acknowledged, that we are here together. We're in this together. We're in everything together because it can't be otherwise. How about Jay?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Oh my God. Hi, Gangaji. I'm so excited.
Hi. No.
I
Well,
remember, uh, thank you. I remember the first video that I intriguingly saw was when you talked about being alone and not fitting in to a collar. And I'm 24 years old, and I've been on this journey of discovering myself and letting go into this presence. And that aspect of my life always been with me, being alone, not fitting in, and it's been so dawning on me. And all my teenage years, I felt like there should be something wrong with me. There should be something wrong with me, and that turned into this obsessive idea of myself, and that created. And I had OCD because of it, because there should be something wrong. So I turned into this obsessive nature, and I struggled with it for 7 years, and I recovered from it. I'm glad I recovered from it. And the the only thing that really helped me out was just that the place that you talk about, the when you let go of the story about how what needs to be done, what am I, why this isn't happening to me, why am I not having friends, directly present with the experience. Oh, this is actually acceptable here.
mm, mm.
I'm actually
Yes, you're welcome here,
Yeah.
just as you are.
Yeah. That doesn't that it's not accepted in the society to be this way. Like I'm still like pretty solid living in solitude, even though the coronavirus thing led us into the solitude. But I've always been in solitude. I have these desires. I'm relatively young. I have a lot of desires in life, but I seem like I'm missing out. The same question that I mean, I know I'm home already, but I still do have this pulse, um, desires to be with a person, desires to have this happen in my life. And most of the time it doesn't happen. But I'm making peace with that. I know where home is. I know that that's all a story. But do you have anything to say? Even though I see emptiness mostly. I see nothing happening.
Well, we say it's all a story, and it is a story, but the story has enormous power and importance in just following any story or any desired story. We overlook where the story comes from. And so to say it's just a story is often a way of actually trying to control it, of actually not feeling the pain of it when it's a very tragic story or a sad story, or even just a piece of it lacking happiness. And I've definitely contributed to this in speaking to people and saying it's just a story. But once we make that a kind of mantra, and I'm not sure you're doing this, but if you are, then it's relevant for you, and I know it's relevant for someone who's listening. If you make that a mantra, then that it's just a story becomes its own story, and it's a story of denial. So when there are moments of loneliness, which is different from being alone, a feeling of yearning or crying or suffering and pain, my suggestion is to not dismiss that as just a story, but to actually recognize what the story is that's attached to that, and then what the feeling is. Then when you are willing to actually inquire into the feeling, just as we did a taste of here a few minutes ago, then from the spaciousness of that inquiry, you recognize it's just a story. But then the story of it's just a story is not used to keep you from that recognition. Does this make sense to you? Are you tracking this? I don't want it to be too convoluted. I just want us to be aware of using insights that we have gained and truths that we have read or directly experienced, then using those as a defense against more deeply experiencing the pain and the beauty of the world we live in. The emptiness and the emptiness that is filled with presence and filled with unwanted events. Because this story that you and I are parts of, this story that our planet is a part of, this is a cosmic story. And it's a story where we can't find the beginning and we can only speculate about the end. But in this moment, we find ourselves as consciousness in the midst of this story. So the story itself then is holy. It receives its holiness from the recognition that it's here, as a story here. If it is a story that is practiced or repeated, it's not a fresh story. It's not a story that is being created out of the moment. It's a story that our minds are imposing on something in particular as a way of protection. So I just invite you to be open when there is a sense of loneliness, to open to that. And when there's no sense of loneliness, to open to that. Because finally they both come from the same place. And then all stories and all release from all stories reveal home. Excuse me, Tom, I didn't get to tell you. I just get a dry throat when I talk a lot. So in that sense, we respect the story, but we don't believe the story. We honor the story, but we don't follow the story. Yeah. We are in awe of the story's power, but we recognize that the deeper power is the consciousness that is aware of the story. And then nothing is trivialized. And then nothing is made small so that we can feel safe. We are gobsmacked, as Marcus said a moment, by it all. It all is filled with this wonder, and some of the wonder is a terrible wonder. And some is peaceful and quiet, and some is raging and in love. It's the nature of our universe, and that our consciousness can be aware of that and be aware of the loss that appears in that, the gain that appears in that, and the recognition that before loss and gain and after loss and gain, before meaning and after all the meanings that we superimpose on this indecipherable story of being, there is this wonder to be. So I'm not sure, I mean, I definitely did take off on that, but I just wanted, I don't want you to sell yourself short. And I appreciate the depth that's there, and I appreciate the happiness that's there, and the realization that's there. And I'm inviting you to more, always. Does that make sense, Jay?
There's a lot in there. Probably have to go to the recording, and but I'd say though, when I allow the story to be here, the story itself isn't it becomes secondary. The primary is my consciousness. Like I'm here, I'm already okay. So
beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I just want to add that there's no end to the depth of that and the freshness of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer.
Hi, Gangaji, can you hear me?
Hi, Jennifer. I hear you. Welcome.
Hi, it's so nice to see you.
Oh, I'm really glad you're here.
At the beginning of the hour, you talked about strategies that we might employ, and one of them was lovemaking. And I was wondering, can lovemaking or our sexuality be a valid method of self-inquiry, or is it only a strategy?
Oh, I'm all for lovemaking. I think it's an exquisite expression, but it's not an expression that's divorced from its motivations. Well, that's confusing. Let me just say this, that the beauty of lovemaking is the touching of something that's beyond what we normally are as human beings, and whether that's fueled by hormones or whatever is secondary. It's a beautiful experience, and to have really made love is for a moment to have experienced freedom. Because when you have really made love, and if we're speaking of sexual love, had orgasmic love, then there's a moment where nothing is needed and nothing is wanted and everything is love. Everything you see is imbued with this love. The trap, of course, with physical sexual lovemaking is that then we associate that release and that wonder with an actual physical act, because it is tied into that act. But that's all right. I mean, for people that for many, many people is their first glimpse of something bigger than just what they think the world is. So in terms of using it for inquiry, in terms of Tantra, I guess you mean, where your lovemaking is an expression of your being with the whole planet. You know, it's not what I teach. I know that there are teachers who teach that, but the inquiry that I teach is actually more simple than that. It's simply a returning to the in the moment, let's say, after the desires have been fulfilled, or if the desires don't get fulfilled, if something goes wrong or it doesn't work out, that's the moment of actually inquiring into what is here. What is here that I didn't get? What is here that I thought I wanted? What is here that I got for a moment? Where is that coming from? Then we get to see that this act, which is really, you know, there are a lot of people without partners or without people or who don't get to experience that. And it's actually not necessary for them. They can discover the same wonder in a true and tantric self-inquiry. Who am I? Then this moment that happens in sexual bliss, where two beings are one, much bigger than either one of the two, is experienced in this. So many parts of myself are one, and that one is bigger than any part of myself. I don't know if that got too abstract, Jennifer, and I'm not even positive that I understood your question right, but I'm just very excited that you're here on the call, that you're able to be here.
Oh, thank you very much, Gangaji.
Oh, please call back sometime. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome home. Rachel. Rachel?
Oh, hang on. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, gosh. This is so peculiar. I will be the third person that's gone, how did I manage to do that? I actually didn't even mean to, but but I will say though that I'm finding it, my challenge with what's happening with the virus at the moment has been slightly compounded by the fact that very sadly I had to put my 11-year-old beagle to sleep a couple of weeks ago. And so I've had all of those feelings of sort of loss and things swirling around and really opening to the beauty of that loss and the love that I feel for this gorgeous, gorgeous animal. And then with the virus sort of, you know, coming in, that there's just been, sorry, what I really mean to say is the challenges in, I find being around other people's often with their energy field, or I want to call it that, of panic or worry. And I have friends whose husbands are potentially losing their jobs and their income, and so it's how to be with those people. I'm trying to navigate to be in conversation with them, to listen to them, to be compassionate without it then affecting me. I found I can be quite a sponge, and whilst I think I'm, you know, you want to be there for these people who you love, these friends, but then I hit quite a level of anxiety last night and through the night and this morning, where starting to feel the overwhelm of what's taking place. And so I'm kind of wondering really what you know, what you might say to how to navigate that with how you know, with how other people are feeling and how that can impact us.
Well, that's one of the benefits of social distancing, isn't it? You know, that you actually can get away from what other people are thinking if it just overloads your nervous system. In terms of the navigation, I mean, the navigation that I recommend, that I support, and that I guarantee you can discover for yourself is to be still, to not navigate. So in this stillness, whatever you are experiencing, whether it was projected onto you or whether it was simply stimulated by something someone feels or said, you can experience that directly. This is not an easy time, so it doesn't mean that the feelings will be easy, but it does mean that you have the capacity to experience what is happening. And sometimes we don't know we have that capacity until it's challenged. There is a great unknown. And what we do know doesn't look good in this moment in time, and especially in regarding the virus. So to be able to be still with that is to be truly still, not to impose a stillness on that. But it's a great challenge. And yet, the space is here. We never have known. It's not like this virus just appeared some months ago in China. This is part of the future is here. We never know what the future is bringing. We know that we want to live, and we know that we will die. And those two poles seem so far apart, and yet to truly live is to actually open to this truth that you will die. I will die. All form will die. And in that opening, then, there's no navigation needed. That's the opening that Ramana gives us with his having faced death. That is the death that we have to experience when we simply retreat from our story and actually inquire more deeply into what is here. We have to leave something behind. So the benefit of the social distancing that we are called upon to practice, it may be uncomfortable and it definitely seems necessary, but it is also, among other things, it is an opportunity to actually recognize even what we have blamed others for. is perhaps just our own mind in reaction, and that we have the capacity to stop. Not to stop like with a club, but to stop, to open. Not to stop because we're bad to tell a story or we're bad to have a feeling, but to open because we can. We have that capacity. And I don't know that that capacity gets spoken of much. I know it does in meditation circles and spiritual circles, but it's not part of the news cycle. It's not part of what our governments are telling us. And I don't have a problem with that. Governments function as they function, and news cycles have their life form. But we meet here for you to recognize that that capacity to open is alive in you as a conscious being, just as you were able to love this wonderful creature who had to die. And the sadness of his death and the joy of his life then meet in this mystery of love. And that's what I invite you to, Rachel, and to anyone that this applies to.
Thank you. I just would like to say one other thing, coming back to one thing you said about the fear of loss and opening to that. It's also in the last, as all this was happening with my dog and the beginnings of this virus here in the States, I had a couple of quite serious health scares. And it's interesting because through listening to recordings and coming to your retreats, you know, I've heard a lot of people talking about health issues that they've had, and people in some cases who were dying, and really, in a way, I was believing that I was really opening to that fear of death and that fear of loss. And it must have been like an onion, like some layers of going in and some loss, but I was really taken aback and surprised when it was something personal to me, where it really was like, wow, that two things at once as well. I'm like, are you kidding me? And it was kind of just this like realizing I really hadn't faced that fear of loss. I thought that or to some degree I had, but
that's right.
But I really was an invitation, the opening, and I just kept hearing your voice and this encouragement to really go into it when I was feeling very, very scared. And just tremendous gratitude to you for all of your words and what you share with everybody, because, you know, what came to me was you and this, right? Yes. Okay. This is, go into this. Don't avoid this. Don't deny this. Just experience it all. So thank you very much.
Oh, beautiful, Rachel, beautiful. And yes, there is always deepening, and our minds are humbled because we think we have deepened, we think we have understood, and then something comes to challenge that. And that's, the mind must be humbled, and as it is humbled in death, because no matter what you want, at some point you will die. And to face that and to be able to open, or your beloved dog will die, or your mate will die, or your civilization as you have known it will die. So without trivializing that, to actually open to that, then the life that is given for however long, your civilization, your little dog, your own body, your own particular consciousness, is lived in a wonder at that and a humility at that. So the recognition and the meeting of death doesn't give rise to cynicism. It gives rise to a freshness. Counterintuitively, I mean, it would seem that we would get hardened to death, but we get more open to the preciousness of our life, of each person who is hearing this, and of each person who's not hearing this, the preciousness of all life. That's what brings us together. That is the impetus for this call today. I know Kat will be able to put you in small groups. I recommend that you stay on the call, the Zoom call anyway. I don't think it will happen with Facebook. And be able to speak to each other in small groups because we have each other. We are here with all. Thank you for your attendance.